All right, so welcome back. So we're going to continue with measuring density of liquids. So you saw in the last video how we measure the density of water. We're basically going to do the same type of thing with an unknown liquid now. So we have this bottle of some unknown solution. So we're going to measure the density of the solution. Then you're going to use our calculated density, compare that to your table of known densities to determine what the substance of this unknown substance is. All right, so we're basically going to follow the same procedure that you followed with doing water. So we've got our 25 ml volumetric flask. You should be familiar with this. You saw it in the last video. So we're going to weigh this first, so that way we can get the weight of it empty. Then we'll fill it up with our solution, reweigh it, and you can get the mass. All right, so we're going to weigh this on our balance. It's already zeroed. We'll put it on here. You'll record this mass as the mass of the empty volumetric flask. All right, so now we've got the mass of our empty volumetric flask. So now we're going to fill it up with our unknown solution. So I'm just going to pour a little bit into this beaker because I can't really pour it directly from this large bottle into our volumetric flask. So I'll get a little bit, try not to get way too much, that way I'm not having to waste too much. I'm going to use a funnel to pour it into my flask, just because it's a little difficult to pour from a large beaker into a small opening inside the flask. And we're going to fill it up to the line, to that mark. So that mark is 25 milliliters. So we're going to fill it up again to the meniscus, to that line. So once I get close, I'm going to stop pouring, and I'm going to use a pipette to be able to add the solution a little slower. I'm going to take my funnel out. And so we're just going to fill that meniscus up to the line. And a few more drops. And there we are. So the bottom of our meniscus is at the mark of our 25 ml flask. So now I'm going to just wipe off the outside to dry it off, just in case I accidentally spilled some on the outside. That way we're only measuring the liquid that's inside the flask. So now we've got it filled. I'm going to put it back on my zeroed balance. And you're going to record this mass as the mass of your flask with your unknown solution in it. So now we have the mass of the empty flask, mass of the filled flask. You can subtract those two to get your mass. You know the volume because it's a 25 milliliter volumetric flask. We don't have to measure the temperature of this solution because we're in the same lab. So when we measured the temperature of the water, everything's equilibrated to the same temperature, right? So the temperature of our unknown solution will be at the same temperature as our water solution. So we're not going to measure the temperature again because we basically already did that in last video. All right, so that's our unknown solution and measuring the mass and volume. You'll calculate the density and then use the table of known values to compare your calculated value with those to determine what the substance is that is inside this bottle. All right, next we're going to be calculating the density of some solids.